All right. Well, welcome to the Cartoon Pad, everyone. And this episode is going to be the best yet. We have another Halloween episode. This is part 2. And the reason why I say it's going to be the best, Michael, is because we have not prepared this hard before.
I think it's going to be pretty spooky.
We homeworked ourselves to death here. We are
I know.
ready.
I think we're over-prepared.
It took us about 90 episodes to get warmed up. I'm warm. I'm ready.
And I just ate a whole bag of candy corn in preparation.
You know,
So
tonight's guest. Go ahead. I'll let your sugar high continue. Go ahead.
Yes. Now I'm following up with a bunch of circus peanuts. The best. I love those.
I want to say that tonight's guest, at first, I didn't think that was right for the podcast because it's getting off the beaten path a little bit. It's not a cartoonist, but then I announce who we have on. So it's not a surprise. We have on today the director of the Charles Addams Foundation. And I asked people if they wanted to ask questions for the show. And we've never gotten this many questions for a podcast before. And, you know, granted it was on Facebook, but it still shows that people are really into tonight's show.
And as you know, Bob, I prefer dead cartoonists to living ones. So Charles Addams is in my wheelhouse.
Not just in the wheelhouse. If I was to be asked who is the Mount Rushmore of gag cartoonists, I would say it would be Addams, Steinberg, Arno, Roz Chaz. It deserves to be on there, but she's still living.
You'll have to kill her.
So the thing is you came up off the air. You told me someone who I forgot, and I'll let you say it because that's an excellent addition.
Yes. So I came up with my Mount Rushmore of the macabre.
No. Before we get to that, we will get to that. We will get to that. But for the Mount Rushmore of gag cartoonists.
Who the hell are you talking about, Bob? I don't know.
James Thurber.
Oh.
You went on about him this afternoon, and then you forgot already. Are you drinking again in the afternoon?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to your Mount Rushmore of the macabre, because I know that's where your heart is.
It is, the macabre. And it ties in well with tonight's guest, because I would nominate Edgar Allan Poe, Alfred Hitchcock, Charles Addams, and the scariest person ever to walk the earth, Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart is the queen of Halloween. I just want to say that. And I love you, Martha.
Okay,
if you can hear this, I'm bringing you my love.
Okay, I'll bite. Why Martha Stewart?
Oh, because when I used to work in catalog land, we promoted a lot of her product. And I put a picture of a witch on the cover of our catalog. And the title of the cover line was Martha Stewart Stirs Up Some Magical Tricks. And it got onto Jay Leno and The Tonight Show. And he was making fun of the fact that he thought the witch was Martha Stewart. So there you go.
And we sold on the air?
Yes, we sold millions. And I saw none of that money.
Well,
and that's why I'm here today.
You'll get royalties.
No.
I have nothing bad to say about Martha Stewart because I am appearing this week on her website. I've done a show a couple of times, and they interviewed me for this week. So she's just wonderful. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I heard you and Martha had a falling out. Something to do with love gone wrong.
She's actually friends with my sister-in-law. Those two went on a road trip and they were working together. She's been selling her art collection, and my sister-in-law is in that business and owns an auction house. So that's why they got close.
So anyway, thank you. The thing about Mount Rushmore is in the movie North by Northwest, when Cary Grant playing Roger Thornhill, discovers his love interest, Eve, is sitting with Mr. Van Dam, played by James Mason. Yes. He bitterly quips, "The three of you together." Now that's a picture only Charles Addams could draw.
Yep. And you know why that line was in there, right?
Yeah, I do. But you tell us, Bob.
Well, Alfred Hitchcock and Charles Addams were friends. And Alfred Hitchcock actually owned two originals.
Now,
Nice
I am
dramatic.
flummoxed and amazed that you knew that. You just made
I
that
did
shit
research. I spent minutes getting ready for
You
this.
did.
podcast.
I'm impressed.
I'm on my game today.
All right. We're going to bring it home for Marty.
Hey guys,
Why? Oh, hello, Marty.
I'm here.
Marty's here.
Did you guys forget about me? I'm always.
A little bit. I'm just coming back from a long trip.
I'm
you
haunting.
just froze, Bob, because you talked about Irma.
Irma Bombeck. I just came back from the grave site to keep with the Halloween theme. And it was very, very nice. It's a large boulder, which she used to write. She used to go and write this big boulder and get away for some quiet. And then they moved the boulder to the cemetery and they used that as like the memorial. And it's very pleasant. I mean, it would be much nicer if she was still alive, but for grave sites, it was pretty nice. And then if you just did a few cartwheels down the hill, you get to the Orville Wright brothers memorial. They have like a little bench with two derby hats to commemorate them.
So when they moved the boulder, was Irma still there or was she gone?
Oh no, this was after she passed away. This was like,
I know, but on the third day they moved the boulder and Irma was gone.
Now you and me went to Catholic school and you just lost half our audience.
No. Marty went to Catholic school.
No,
I'm a recovering Southern Baptist.
I just went to regular school. I was kicked out of Sunday school. I was kicked out of CCD. That's what I went to Sunday school, and then CCD is when you're older,
right?
And then I asked too many questions, so I had to leave CCD, and I opted for a youth group that was run by a Methodist church. That was less. It was non. It wasn't really religious. Although,
now we're losing half our audience.
Well, we've lost everyone then.
Marty.
All the really cute cheerleaders and field hockey girls went to this youth group, so I went.
Okay, all right.
You're back, Marty.
We'll let him back on. Michael, I had a cartoon. My most troublesome cartoon was a boulder in front of the cave, and it was, how in New York City you get menus left at your door, and you have pamphlets. I did one where the cave was covered by a boulder, and there was all these menus and pamphlets piled up around the boulder as if they were away. And there was a lot of conflict when that got published as to whether or not I was referring to a cave or Jesus Christ. And then there was a little bit of feedback and a little bit of blowback regarding, was it insensitive or, I think the joke works. Bob Mankoff thought the joke works fine either way, but there was a little bit of trepidation.
That reminds me of my cartoon where this guy walks up and he says, "Mohammed, you just missed him." He's not there.
And the last of the audience just left.
Yes. Okay, we're down to 3. We need to get our guest.
It was 5 minutes ago that I promised this would be the best episode.
Tragically, it is.
So let me tell you a Halloween story. So I'm in Dayton, Ohio for the Irma Bombeck convention. And that's
scary already.
That's why I was at the gravesite.
Okay.
The last person who I saw by accident we were in the restaurant together alone and we chatted, was Lorraine Newman, whose most famous part was recreating the Exorcist scene with Richard Pryor on Saturday Night Live in season 2.
I do remember that.
Nice. She was very nice and humble. And I actually forgot to tell her the one thing I wanted to say to her, which was that her daughter did a fabulous job on the TV show Hacks, which I only watched because Marty insisted I give it a try.
I watched it and enjoyed it, and I had no idea. Is that the lead female?
Hacks is so good.
It is very good. I had no idea that was her.
Jean Smart, so good.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very good show. And I also want to mention quickly that I met Kathy Geiswhite, who creates the cartoon Kathy, and she was And she's very, very impressive and stuff. And we'll have her on the podcast down the road.
Did Kathy and Irving ever get married? I can't remember.
Irving, ack.
I was never a big fan of the cartoon. I just didn't read cartoon strips. But after spending the weekend with Kathy and having memories I'll never forget.
Kathy had a nice pace to it. I mean, it was lively. It wasn't Dullsville. There's some cartoon strips that are just like, you just read them to get through it. But Kathy was a fun cartoon.
Well, it stood out because it was kind of different looking from everything else. But we'll talk about it when she comes on the show.
Okay.
Ack.
She was very, very nice.
Ack. Oh, Irving.
And also, she is a genius with creating not just a cartoon strip, but creating an entire lifestyle brand that would go around the Kathy character for years and years and years and years and years of fans, similar to what Garfield did. You know, like Kathy is very similar to that Garfield universe. Other cartoon strips are just cartoon strips, but Kathy became like a whole line of stuff that like spoke to the audience.
But you know, our guest tonight, we're going to talk about Charles Addams, and I wonder if his cartoons half of them probably would not make the pages of the New Yorker these days. That's just my thought.
I know mine wouldn't.
Because of the violence?
It's not violence. It's more the subject matter. I like my favorite Charles Addams is the one about the guy trying to commit suicide and screwing it up. Now, I can't see that being published these days.
I published a very similar cartoon by Drew Pancurry 2 years ago, and I published it in Weekly Humorist, and it did so well on Instagram, Shaw. It was a guy trying to hang himself, and he was on an office rolly chair with, you know, the wheels, and a woman comes in and goes, "Oh, you shouldn't stand on a rolly chair. That's very dangerous."
Oh, I am boycotting you now.
Well, Marty,
It was great. It was a great.
But Marty, you just proved the point. Drew came to you and sold you the cartoon. I'm sure he first tried to sell it to the New Yorker, and he got rejected.
Marty, does the Weekly Humorist have an HR department?
Yes, it's me.
Sure.
I think you need to, you know, take some classes.
It's a very
turn yourself in.
And you know the thing about both Charles Addams and a cartoonist like Drew Pancurry is the style in which they draw is so cute and soft that they can get away with more because it's almost like it's hidden in this cutesy package.
Yes, you are exactly correct, sir. That's the charm of Charles Addams, is that he's depicting the most heinous, shadowy bits of human behavior in the most pleasantly consumable way possible.
The last cartoon that I sold to Hugh Hefner was a Charles Addams parody. It was the guy, the skier, but the skier is going by with a chainsaw, and he had chopped down the tree, and I was trying to, there you go. That's exactly what Michael's holding up for those who don't watch the podcast on YouTube.
Right.
Showing the similar one, except mine was very much in the style of Charles Addams, and Michael's cartoon looks like it was done by someone who was
it looks like it was done by me.
It looks like someone was drunk. But
well, no, it's someone whose drawing ability doesn't quite include trees or chainsaws.
I was always trying to do cartoons at that time about global warming or rainforests and things like that. I tried to incorporate it in, and whatever. Whatever.
You're such a cause-driven cartoonist.
Yeah, look at the difference I've made.
Yeah, I know. You just have to not care and just draw funny crap. Crap.
There I would disagree. I still think that as gag cartoonists, we shouldn't be gagged. We should be saying things that are on our mind, what's affecting all of us. Because, I mean, we have this platform. I mean, it's crazy to be doing cartoons of only like cats and cat names. I mean, that's crazy.
Some people. have written an entire book about cat.
I know.
An entire.
Well, get on with
book.
it. Wake, open your eyes. I
Can
mean,
you believe
look around you. I mean, is that what people need?
are wasting their lives making ridiculous things like cat books.
It's embarrassing.
I mean,
I mean,
We need, we need an oasis from the horrors of everyday life. And that's what a cat book is.
We have a quick ad sponsor for this episode of the Cartoon Pet. Is brought to you by, what's the name of your book, Bob? The cat name book?
The complete book of cat names that your cat won't answer to anyway.
Available now in Amazon.
Yeah, from the good people at W.W. Norton.
And I understand it's trending #1 in Amazon for nameless cat books.
Oh,
Actually, it's #2. There's another book that came out just on the same subject, and there's 2 of us, and he kind of knocked me out of the top spot. But
would you say that he batted you off?
yeah, and you put him back on, and he batted him off again. He did that 19 times.
I got a really nice review in the Seattle Book Review, and it was just hilarious that someone would give that book 5 out of 5 stars.
How about Cat Fancier?
No, that they didn't care for the book.
They did not care for it.
No, this is a kind of a highbrow.
And they were very happy.
So also in the Bob trajectory of excellence, you are the current caption contest cartoon in the New Yorker.
You know, Michael, you and me have both appeared on that page now in recent times.
My life is complete.
And it's been a while since we were in the magazine, so it is nice to
Does that count?
Back a little bit. No, it doesn't.
Oh God.
As a matter of fact, I just got off the phone with Sam Gross, who told me it doesn't count.
Good. So was there an actual caption? Describe the cartoon, and if there was a caption, what the caption was.
There was a caption. The cartoon was.
Was it a caption? Come on, guys. This is low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging.
Michael, Michael, I'm talking just to you, because if Marty is not.
What a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, if he's not part of the solution, he's part of the problem. The thing is that cartoon was a recent submission, and they asked to run it as a caption contest and remove the caption that I gave them, which I can't say now. I'm not allowed to say it, right, until later.
I don't know. I mean, there's no rule against that. I just got done with Mr. Go to Hell Pants, and now I'm syndicating it as a daily single strip, single panel, much in the same venue, Marty, as Herman.
And someone said you bought a boat from the
I did.
event?
No, I bought an island in Maine.
Well, you have to
right next to Matt Diffie.
Yeah, but how else are you getting to the island without that boat?
It's a spite island. It's just so he has to look at me.
Oh, it's next to Diffie's? It's next
to Diffie's. It's a spite island. I'm going to put up a bunch of trailers, and we're going to just have like wild hootenannies and Terry hooting all night long. So his beautiful, idyllic getaway has been spoiled by my white trash shenanigans.
Okay. All right, listen, I'm getting a little uncomfortable. We got 2 minutes here that we didn't talk about me. So let's bring it back to my cartoon. The cartoon I drew was a boardroom of pumpkins, and they all have sad faces. And at the head of the table is the big boss, a pumpkin head with a smiley face. Our guest.
You know, I saw the smiley face. Bob, for everyone at home, Bob has left the set. He's talking on the cell phone, and I think, you know, tragedy has struck. So Marty, now we get to talk.
This is not live.
He's landing the plane, ladies and gentlemen. So did you see hey, further details, Bob's walking around with no pants on. What's up with that?
He has a nice apartment. Maybe we can take this time to take a look at Bob's apartment and dissect what is.
Can we zoom in?
The number one thing that I've noticed about Bob's apartment, now that we're taking this moment, is to see that it looks like he stole a book display from a bookstore. You know, like where you go and it has all the paperback romance novels, the Harlequin romance novels that they would have at the grocery store. And it looks like he took that entire thing home with him one day from the Associated Supermarket or Key Food here in Manhattan or New York.
And it looks like there's something on a table, and I thought it was a candle, but now I'm frighteningly think it's something else that shouldn't be on that table.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what is that?
I don't want to say that word out loud.
Okay.
It's a little blurry from here, though.
You know, for being the best podcast ever, this podcast has taken a lot of strange.
There's a lot of Bob's own cartoons that he has framed and put on his own wall. That's,
oh yeah, okay.
Very nice of him to do. I see some.
You know, and for a guy who's just written a book about cats, it's curiously free of any felines.
No cats there. It's a good point.
Okay, so Marty, this is the story. Kevin can't log on. He keeps on getting a error message from the link, asking for a password and saying that his computer doesn't have enough requirements to run the Zoom. He says he's been using the computer for Zoom, and this is the first time it happened. So I suggest that we could shut down. I give you his email address, and you could see if you're sending him a new Zoom link.
I can send him the link right now. We don't have to shut anything down.
Well, do you know, don't you want to give him a different link than we're on now?
No, there's only one link because.
What is
it?
Zoom? It's Zoom Tech Talk, ladies and gentlemen. We are now solving the problem.
Can you copy and paste his email into the chat so I can copy and paste it?
Okay.
Please keep this in the broadcast. It's gritty. It's real life. It's happening now.
Sorry.
Sorry.
My
Don't
mail
be sorry.
program is not working. It's not going on.
It looks like this episode is haunted, guys.
I know. Bob's mail program is not working. Is that code for something, Bob? Is there something you need to tell us? Well, this has been fun, guys. So thanks for having me on. So who do you like in the World Series? Come on, let's talk sports. Bob wanted to talk sports. He used to be a sports writer. He knew.
I think Bob's Yankees are doing really well. So I think I think they're going to go all the way this year.
I thought he was a Mets guy.
You get that, Marty?
Did you send it in the chat?
Yeah.
He sent it as a message.
Did you sent it on the telephone chat? Okay.
Yes, he sent it as a message.
It's not useful to me, but that's okay. That's okay, Bob.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a difference. I'm using my Macs.
You know, Bob, your hair is not up to its usual standards either.
Oh, that's not what the lady said in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, well, you were the only guy there, weren't you? I mean, you were like the fox in the hen house.
I was one of 5 out of 1,200.
Like a nursing home.
Hello. And on top of it, out of the 5 men, I was the youngest.
Oh, Lord.
I was the only one with hair at all, so they would take anything, Michael.
You do have pretty good hair, Bob. Is there product in there? Can you get that naturally, or do you do something? What is it?
I'm going to tell you what I use. I use this product called Crew Wax. I use a little dab of wax in my hair so it doesn't look totally dried out.
And Marty's still using placenta and egg yolk?
I'm hoping these people are going to become sponsors for the show. That's the only reason why I shared that secret.
I use Brill cream. Because a little dab will do you.
Back in the day, I used to use, I remember it looked like a fat glue stick, and it was called Butch Wax.
Ooh, Butch Wax.
It was in a round cylinder, and you'd push it up almost like a push pop.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And you'd put that on you get up, and then you'd just go on your forehead to the top of your hair.
You look a little like, you're looking a little like, who's the guy on Stranger Things I like? Anyone watch Stranger Things?
Michael, just so you know,
yes.
Kevin, did you see that I sent you how to pronounce his last name?
Yes, I was watching a Facebook where they pronounce his name, and it's Miserocchi.
That's good. He is he's a lot younger,
No,
Um,
I looked at him. He looks younger than I do, which is not hard to do.
Yeah, I thought he was an older man. He is not.
Well, no, he's in the bloom of youth. Please. Okay. We're gonna leave him out.
Hello, Kevin. Are you there?
The K is there.
Hmm.
Huzzah! We have a guest.
Kevin, we
no-
could see you, but we can't
More,
hear you.
more messages on this, just to do one thing. Thank you, Marty, very much, by the way.
Oh,
Hello,
great to
Kevin.
join you. Good to see you, Kevin.
Likewise, Bob. I mean, just a few friendly 20 minutes late. I mean, I couldn't believe I was getting stuck on this. That's all.
Traffic was terrible.
Stop.
It's that Hampton Jetty.
Yeah, I'm not in Hamptons. I'm up in Westchester. So
All the
it's even
lights were
worse.
against you.
Yeah. I don't know why. It's never happened before, but it told me that my computer needed to be upgraded. And it's like, that's never happened. I need a 5.3 memory and didn't have it. Okay, thank you. So anyway, here we are.
Off to the Apple Store. So it's nice to meet you. I have a beautiful intro for you. I'm going to do in a Rod Sterling manner.
Oh, all right then.
Okay. Submitted for your approval. Imagine your days spent in a house surrounded by cartoons of ghouls, maniacs, and monsters. Lovingly rendered depictions of husbands and wives plotting each other's murders and occasionally succeeding. Constantly gazing at the bizarre activities of an eccentric family of fiendish characters wandering about a dilapidated Victorian mansion, performing acts of mayhem on themselves and others, all in superbly executed pen and ink wash. Yes, the strangest of all, droves of ardent admirers also flock to this house to witness these images, finding themselves entertained and amused. But there's one person who doesn't have to imagine such events. He's waiting now just outside the cartoon door, and he's come in, ready to bear witness to unspeakable acts of humor. Join us now as we take a stroll through the T. and Charles Addams Foundation with our guest, Executive Director H. Kevin Miserocchi. Enter, sir, and stay if you dare.
And so I do.
Okay, I'm done. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Hi, Kevin. It's good to have you on the show. I'll mention also that Kevin's also a TV and movie producer. He wrote the popular book, The Addams Family and Evolution. And his new project is Wednesday, a live action TV series on Netflix coming out November 23rd. Kevin, let me ask you really quickly. The first question is, the rumor is that was filmed in Romania. Is that in fact true?
It is. Tim Burton took one of the writers with him, and they went off to Romania for maybe 2 weeks, looking at possible scouting out some locations to do the outside of the school that Wednesday Addams is supposedly attending in New England, a prep school. Apparently, Tim didn't want to use anything that had ever been used in the United States or Canada. And because of pandemic, we were very limited in this country of what studios could be used and what lots. Romania was a great place to go. They had all the room in the world to build the sets. And so they did. They built a New England village there. And so,
Wow.
yes, it was filmed there.
Oh, that's great. We have a lot of questions for this show. It was like the most questions we ever got for an episode. And one of them is that the teasers to Wednesday look fabulous. I'm quoting one of their fans. The cast looks great. The tone seems spot on. What can we expect from the series? Because there are fans out there now biting at the bit, waiting for Wednesday.
Yeah. I'm not going to leak out what it is, of course, because there are some theaters in the United States that are apparently doing some sneak preview. one of which is in Westfield, New Jersey, where Charlie was born. They have a festival every year, a month long, called Addams Fest. And Netflix/MGM permitted them to do a sneak preview one night of seeing the first episode. So they are doing that tomorrow night. Anyway, it is a murder mystery. It is an 8-part series. It does take in mostly Wednesday, but the other family members as well. It is about her and her relationships with other students at this Nevermore Academy. And it is really well done. It's beautifully shot. Costumes by another Academy Award winner, Colleen Atwood. Music by Danny Elfman. It's got all the bells and whistles. And I think, Tim joining it really brought that around, where they got the acting crew and all the other people together. That he sells tickets.
Well, congratulations. Sounds great.
I'm looking forward to it. I haven't seen any of it. I've spent 4 years doing the script approval and that sort of thing, and reading through all of these changes. So it has been fun, but it's been a long process.
I got a great way of segueing back into cartooning. I have a quick question, again, from one of the fans wrote, did Wednesday Addams get her name because Wednesday was the day cartoonists show their work around town, not just to the New Yorker, but to everywhere else, making it a scary day?
Well, go ahead.
Sorry, I can answer that question. It's because Wednesday's child is full of woe.
Right.
Please, Bob.
Wednesday was not the day that Charles Addams went in, because if you had, Tuesday was, as Sam Gross said, Tuesday is the day that the elite people came in with their cartoons, and Wednesday was for the rest of the people. So Charlie went in on Tuesdays with his ideas, and the meetings were much smaller and quicker. And Charlie did name Wednesday because of the Child of Woe, because of that ancient English poem of Monday's Child.
Yeah. So, Bob, can we get to the hard-hitting questions now instead of all this social media crap? Sorry.
No, not yet.
Okay.
But Kevin, I have to share. I just got off the telephone with Sam Gross. And Sam Gross, my connection with Sam Gross is that we were friends before I was a cartoonist. And I was working on this book called The History of the Snowman. And that's how I met Sam. I got cartoons for the intermission of the book that were done by him and Charles Addams. And you helped me with the book. And that's how you and me met.
That's right.
And I thank you again, because otherwise we wouldn't have met. And it was great. It was great to have met you. And now here we are again. It's about 15 years.
I know. I thought that. I was going to say, oh my God, please don't tell me it's 20 years ago. But it's a long time ago. I think I was just starting out with the foundation, really. Just getting my feet on the ground with it.
Yeah. And I know all about the foundation. I read all your interviews and stuff, but maybe you want to share yourself how you got to know T and Charles in your own words, and just briefly, if you wish, and got involved in the foundation.
Sure. We, T and I met actually in the early 70s, because she was involved with a bunch of animal rights people to build an adoption center for dogs and cats on the East End of Long Island. It was a notorious place for people from not just New York City, but wherever, to drop off pets on the East End that were unwanted. And so they became a lot of pack animals, pack dogs, and really bad things going on there. So we met. I could do fundraising. She knew where all the people in the deep pockets were. And so we went together on that issue to raise money to build the Animal Rescue Fund. In the process, I would go to her house for meetings. She wasn't married to Charlie yet. And there was cat fur in the air and dog hair and cigarette smoke and birds tweeting, and you couldn't tell where you were. Her office was stacked with debris. It's like, just amazing. And then on the walls, sort of in the distance, I could see these, cartoons. And that's when I discovered, your boyfriend, that really nice, soft-spoken, kind of stammering guy, is Charles Addams with 2 Ds. Those are his cartoons. And that was my moment of crossing over. It was wonderful. So, and many years later, Charlie died in '88, and T and I formed the foundation then in 1999. She was a very slow burn to get things done and to consider what to do. So lawyers advised her and things like that, and we formed the foundation together.
So, Kevin, you were friends with T, and you heard about a Charlie, but you didn't know who Charlie was.
Well, I did, because I had met him and partied with him and whatever, but he didn't sit there and say, "Hi, I'm a cartoonist of the New Yorker." It was Charles Addams. Okay. It didn't mean anything to me at the time, because I just assumed it was, I didn't even care about the spelling. It was Charlie, her boyfriend or live-in. So I, didn't pay much attention to that until I sat in her house in the office where the cartoons were. The rest of the house didn't have cartoons in them. It had Asian art and whatever else she had from former marriages. But the office had cartoons, and Charlie's apartment, of course, had cartoons.
It's amazing to me that there's this whole backstory to Charles Addams that I don't think most people know. And also that his career was primarily had nothing to do with the Addams family. They were a creation of, from his cartoons to promote a new television series.
Right. I mean, he really didn't care about it. He, was not opposed to it, but the 2 brothers who actually were the producers and came, forward and called him on the phone, having seen one of his books in a Doubleday Brentano's store window, thought, we should do that. We ought to make a TV series out of that. And they called him, met him, had drinks, and off to the races. He was an artist. I think it was such a weird situation to have a cartoonist's work being made into a TV series or being used. It had never happened before. Contract wasn't particularly good. He made 0 money out of it. He got a percentage of the net. So that meant he was getting, after the last electrical bill was sent out, he'd get $12.46. That kind of royalties does not keep a man alive. So he wasn't really interested in it. He liked the actors. He went out twice, and saw it. And it was amusing, the set designs, all the funny things that are in it, and became friendly with Carolyn Jones and John Astin.
I'm amazed by the resemblance between Carolyn Jones and his first wife, Barbara, too.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, and actually all 3 wives, they were all, he married a look. Unfortunately, the middle wife was one that he should have never married, but he did.
Is that Bad Barbara?
That's Bad Barbara. And
I was reading this. It kind of reminds me of Thurber, because his first wife, Alma, sort of flavored the rest. I mean, it flavored his cartoons, and then it started paying off. And he goes, well, this is my shtick. I'm sticking to it.
Linda Davis did a pretty good job in her book getting into the details of that marriage and that failure. But it was really a look that Charlie was impressed with. I mean, that's why he dated Jackie Kennedy. It's that same look. The eyes, the hair, the whole thing.
Yes, I can see it.
Files full of women in pillbox hats, for God's sakes,
So where does Jackie fit in this? I've heard that story that, you look at Charles Addams and you go like, wow, he seems to be punching above his class. He doesn't strike me as like the Peter Arno raconteur roue kind of guy, like the
because
romancer.
He was very, it's true. He was very soft-spoken. His teeth were set back insofar he had a little bit of a lisp. That he covered by speaking slowly and carefully. But he was also really bright. And he worked in any group he was in. He had so many girlfriends, I can't even begin to tell you who they were.
Good Lord, Bob, what are we doing wrong?
Everything.
Everything. Okay, I got it. We're doing everything wrong.
He was pure charm, and his cartoons were in the New Yorker. It was the intelligentsia who read that magazine and who saw his cartoons. So he had his own stardom behind that. I mean, to end up, dating Joan Fontaine was no trick either. But she was Joan Fontaine, and she would take him along for the ride, kind of thing. He enjoyed sex, and he was really good at it. And so he had a lot of girlfriends.
Talk about still waters running deep.
Absolutely, he did. He was very. You would not believe it. I mean, he looks like Walter Matthau.
No, yeah, he looks.
Okay, there you are. So if we want to judge the book by its cover, one would assume he just stays home and reads books, and not at all. At least 2 dates a day. At least.
Holy moly.
We have all these little black books, every single one from 55 to 88.
This is okay. We're going down the rabbit hole, so let's go.
We are.
How did he build his wealth? Because he didn't come from money. Could you make that kind of revenue being a cartoonist back then?
No, I mean, he did very well, and he lived, in a very funky apartment. Had 2 floors on the top building, top of a building on 54th Street, overlooking the Museum of Modern Art. But he didn't have a lot of money. He spent it on cars and weaponry that he collected and whatever. I mean, he did at that time, he could go to a junk shop on 2nd Avenue and buy a crossbow for $12 underneath a pile of dust and detritus. So Charlie was smart of how he did things, and he was a professional guest. That because he was the little darling, he had really good friends, Jack and Drew Hines, who were Hines 57.
Oh my.
They had a lot of money, and they took him everywhere with them. They adored him, and they bought his art, and they collected his drawings, and he brought Greta Garbo to their house. All that stuff, worked to make him a very popular party person. He lived in a tuxedo and had dirty fingernails for it.
Wow.
with India ink under there.
Well, Bob doesn't want to brag, but he's just got done partying with Irma Bombeck.
I know. He did write me this. I did know he just got off the plane, but
the one thing I do with Charles Addams that we did together, and Michael too, is we have great cars, and Charlie's cars I thought were just fabulous.
They were. He collected cars, not all at the same time. He owned 2 Bugattis in his life. He didn't have that income at all, at least on today's standards for a Bugatti, but he also knew how to fix them, repair them. He had a couple of really good friends. They worked on their cars all the time and loved it. So he probably had about 30 something cars in his lifetime that he fooled around with and even raced, in the 40s in Watkins Glen. A big old Mercedes, the 1932 or 33 Mercedes, my God. He had a good life.
That's the one Hitler had. I have a Triumph TR6. It's a toothless lion, and I live just outside of Road America in Elkhart Lake. So I am living a shadow of Charles Addams' life.
Well, it was a different time if you think about it. I mean,
I want to be in New York.
Charlie died in 1988.
And it's one more rabbit hole. So Charles Addams, I would guess his peak cartooning years were the 50s?
40s, 50s.
And that's when...
and 60s were still good, but not as strong as the 40s and 50s.
And that's when William Shawn was editor. 52 was his first year. And that was when the New Yorker was at its absolute most boring editorially. And my theory is that Charles Addams and those types of cartoonists actually added the spice to the magazine, because Thurber would call it the bland leading the bland. That's when they had like 4-part exposés on the history of grain.
And really
you had to have,
you
had to have cartoons like that. And today I think it's the exact opposite. I think the editorial content is very edgy, and the cartoons are like a little bit of palate cleanser, tonic water seltzer.
Right. They're not.
My theory.
I don't think they're quite as creative as the subject matter of cartoons were, or the broad scope of cartoons were back then, versus now it is you're quite right. They're just harmless. I mean, they're sort of echoing politics, which may be much stronger in its actions, but I don't think they're quite as creative as they were. And even the art themselves. I mean, I'm thinking of Charles Addams because he was quite a painterly cartoonist.
Yes.
Very unusual.
Yes.
A very unusual cartoonist. I mean, Arno did his wonderful social media, great quality cartoons, but Charlie did skies and water and things that, with a paintbrush and washes that just didn't happen. So he would spend.
I have to say one more
weeks
little
on a
rabbit
drawing.
hole. When I first showed up in New York as a wee child of 41, the first thing I did was go to the New York Public Library and look at his show. And that's when I first was getting cartoons in. And I thought to myself, what the hell am I trying to do? And I go like, that's
You're
like,
still saying that.
I am. I mean, it's funny. You look at his art and it's just, you just keep kind of staring at it. And
He was, one of your fans wrote in saying, "What did he have favorite work, a favorite piece?" And I can say he had some, but they were in particular his favorite that he himself felt good about were ones that he didn't have to put a caption on. That you got the idea all in one picture, okay? And he may have spent a lot of time on that. He was extremely proud of the one where his husband and wife are at the Colosseum, and all the fellow can imagine is the woman running around the ring with the lions chasing her, and so happy that she might be killed by the lions. And again, he was so proud of the details. He really worked on how that Colosseum looked, from a cartoonist point of view and not photographic. Again, with a color cover he did of Notre Dame, with a shadow on the wall of a pterodactyl flying, coming down on all the people who were standing outside overlooking Paris. I mean, he worked on that for weeks and weeks, getting the details correct. And so he was a very interesting artist, but a cartoonist. He could work fast, but when he did these things, he worked very slowly and owned it.
Did he submit roughs? How did he?
Yes.
I've never really seen a rough.
We have again, back to Westfield, New Jersey, there's a show currently going on there that we do every year, but this year is on the actual development. How do you make a cartoon? How do you get a published cartoon? And we also had a children's cartooning class in July, the product of which the children's framed art is alongside of Charlie's finished art. So it's quite a wonderful exhibit. But in particular, we have exhibited a lot of his roughs, sometimes 5 roughs in order to get to the finished product. And we've next to it put the published page. So that you
Are
can
those on
see
your
how it developed.
are those on the website? I was looking
No.
for. Oh,
It's part of the catalog raisonné that is now, thousands of drawings. And I need to, at first I was working on the catalog raisonné just on published work. And I was so concerned about getting really good examples from people that we went out to the public saying, do you have these 900 originals we're missing of his published works? And now I realize we don't need to do that. This is online. We're not publishing this book in print form. We can go online with very not great, in other words, a photograph of a photograph of a photograph,
Sure.
a third rate, to get the idea of what he did and not be so persnickety about the quality of being so precise. We do not make prints of anything that we don't have the originals of. But as far as the roughs, that's thousands more. And then we call them roughs. They're preliminaries of published pieces. Then there's several thousand of roughs that were never published in any format, and they're wonderful. Some of them are finished drawings. To me,
that's why I think they would be the rough like a Rembrandt rough.
Sometimes, very sketchy too. They're wolf pencil with his, making quick shadows with the what's that paper thing? The name has escaped me now, but it's a paper roll that smudges. There's
Oh,
a
I don't
term.
know.
There's a term for it, and I can't remember what it is.
Frottage?
No, frottage.
Oh, whoa.
I think that's somewhere else.
That's
You just
something
jumped
else.
down a huge rabbit hole from
That's-
somewhere else.
That's another aspect of Charles Addams' life we won't get into. Bob, save me, please.
Yeah,
I'm so glad this is only verbal, oral. We're not going to see this.
Hey, wait a minute. Come on, Bob. Reel us back in.
yeah. Kevin, you did a good job of covering some of the questions that have been coming in, like the catalog. Let me ask you about Charles's relationships with other cartoonists, though. Some people wanted to know if he had a relationship with Sam Cobbeen, who has some similarities, or do you know if there were other cartoonists who worked with Charles?
Sam was his best friend, best friend. They were in the Army together. So I do have it's too long. It's too long to sit here and read this over this particular thing, but there is a foreword to Sam Cobbeen's book that was published posthumously by his wife for Harper Brothers Books, and Saul Steinberg selected all the drawings to go into it, and Charlie wrote a foreword. And it is about, July 2nd, 1951, where he talked to Sam on the phone, and they talked about things, and Sam was saying he'd really like to mate his poodle with Charlie's poodle, and, very silly, light, wonderful stuff that those two boys, I think, discussed a lot of fun times. And then, of course, what happened was in that afternoon, Sam was killed in his Jaguar and rear-ended, and the steering wheel went right through his chest. Luckily, the passenger survived, but Sam died, and it stunned Charlie. It stung him and it stunned him, and he never got over it because they were such good friends. Went to Europe together, did everything. Good Barbara at that time was his wife, and Charlie's wife, and Ann Cobbeen. The four of them got along just wonderfully. So it was a very difficult time to lose his best friend and a man who he felt, which he says at the end of the foreword, hopefully is remembered as one of the finest cartoonists because he works so fast and so efficiently in that sort of Thurber-esque, much fewer lines to tell one story, where Charlie was so detail-oriented, complete opposite of Sam. As far as other cartoonists, I know he was aware of them at the New Yorker, and he was palsy with Saul Steinberg, to a point. But he was so busy seeing women, he really didn't have much time to spend a lot of time with the cartoonists. He belonged to those, a couple of clubs downtown where they all met up and had a good time. And the only other one I would say who was really tight with was Frank Modell. They were very good friends as well. And Frank had that ability to do a quick drawing with few lines as well. And that so impressed Charlie because he couldn't do that. He had to work on it always.
Wow, that's some group of cartoonists. Frank Modell. I didn't realize that they were chums because that's another great iconic cartoonist.
Yes, I know. I remember his memorial that they had down at the coffee house club, where they would meet up quite often. It was quite an evening to see all the people who were still around when Frank had died. And he was a really close friend of T and Charlie. He did a lot of cartoons, personal ones for them. They were always wonderful. I mean, they were about nature and about nature interfering with humans. And he loved that subject matter of birds singing, and he wanted to shoot them.
So I have to ask, what's your favorite Charles Addams cartoon?
There's so many that, my problem is I'm so exposed to I see it all.
You see them every day. Should I read the intro again? Because
No, it's okay. I got it.
Okay.
I got the idea.
Okay, good.
It's good for me. But
Okay.
Yeah. I think most favorite ones are about the husband and wives.
Oh.
That he He was tortured by his middle wife terribly, which may have influenced, even though he was only married to her from 54 to 56, but I'm sure it did influence some of his work. But he didn't make them look like her. His wives were always had piano legs.
Yes.
And were much taller and hunkier than the husbands who had been beaten down for years and were much shorter.
Yeah,
And
that's a very Thurber-esque quality too.
yeah, absolutely. And the women always spoke for the man. I'll take care of this. But there is one with the wife coming into an apartment store, and she says, I don't know the sleeve length, but the neck size is about like this. She got her hands down like she's really throttling him.
That's funny. Sorry. My favorite one is the woman's coming into the room and the man's trying to hang himself and he's got his arm caught. And she goes,
well, I mean, we do.
For heaven's sake, can't you do anything right?
3 or 4 with a door between the husband and wife's rooms. And, she's got a big cement block ready to swing, and he's got a rifle mounted. So when the door opens, come on in, honey, the door's unlocked.
So what did his wife just thought this was his métier, that it wasn't meant for them. It was just his muse being pursued.
Could be. I mean, I think, Good Barbara, he had a relationship with a woman long before he married Barbara Day, who was from Westfield, New Jersey also. But he had another relationship with another woman before that. And they were very serious. And we have just recently gotten all the love letters that went back and forth from her daughter. And he wanted to marry her. And her parents wouldn't let him because they had a detective come into the picture and decided that, or a lawyer, I forget if it was a lawyer or detective.
Oh my, what year was this?
We're talking about 19, I would say 40, let's put it that way. 30s into the 40s.
I really admire his stamina now. He was in a lot better shape than I thought he was.
Well, I mean, he died at 76. I think he was more like 95 because of what he had gone through. And he died.
I'd rather have a quality 76 than a austere 95.
He died at age 76, 14 years later. And the two of them lived very strong, social, wonderful lives, that they had a really good time. And how he could get in the amount of cartooning that he did in publishing and the car work and the women is quite a juggling act. It's just amazing what he did.
He's my new hero on many different levels.
But the first woman before Barbara Day, her family said to her, you can't marry him because he's only a cartoonist who won't amount to anything. And then this woman, who is that woman's daughter, wrote and told me that, mother ended up, having to leave New Jersey. They sent her away to school in Wisconsin, I think, or no, somewhere else. But she ended up in Wisconsin. And what did she do? She married a cartoonist. And we know nothing about.
Yeah, well, cartoonists in Wisconsin come to no good.
Well, there we are.
Speaking as a cartoonist who's now living in Manitowoc, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. It's all right.
It's all right.
It's all right. I mean, we're on internet now, so we have a whole different world in front of us. You could do it from anywhere. But it was very funny that he was a failure in that family's estimation, and she ended up marrying one anyway. So
in Wisconsin, that's punishment.
They may have moved to Wisconsin.
Okay.
I think they were from Pennsylvania.
What was Charles in Chicago? I was watching the little snippet of the red coat, and he was in Chicago being abused for his wardrobe choice as a young man. So
I don't know what that is.
Okay. That was a random YouTube I found.
Is it? Oh, well, there we are. I have no idea, but I know he wasn't exactly the smartest dresser. But he always looked presentable. But I think try and do a little flair now and again. And he looked much better in the Brooks Brothers costume that he really lived in most often. That's who he was. He was, a blazer, a kind of a smoking jacket man with his little silver case of 3 cigars in there next to the little black book for dates.
All right, I have to ask you one more question. Do you know what go to hell pants are?
No, they're not 3/4 length, are they? No.
No,
Those-
they're made famous by Brooks Brothers, and they were usually a Madras pattern, and it could be go to
Oh.
hell pants or go to
Oh, I
hell
know what those
sport
are.
coat.
Yeah. No, that's very.
So,
Charlie wasn't there. He wasn't of
Okay.
that. That's clubby. He wasn't a club
okay. No, that's for my own personal cartoon reference.
guy. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, now I thank you. I've learned this. Can add this
Yes.
to my repertoire now. Go to hell pants were not in his wardrobe.
Okay.
Well, Kevin, let me get to some of the questions we had coming in.
Yes.
And let's see, they're a little bit all over the place, but you could field whichever ones you want. What is your take on the state of gag cartoons compared to what many today think? I won't put it that way. I'll just ask you, what is your take on the state of gag cartoons today?
Well, again, we did tap into that a little bit. They're much faster. I think it's still part of the balance that we need cartoons. We have to have that. It's all way too serious. It gets worse and worse. It's not post-World War II, but it may as well be. We're back in Tsarist Russia or wherever we are. So cartoons are really necessary to ease some of this otherwise angst. And I would say the difference is, of course, it is faster, meaning there's not the painterly not stuff that Charlie would pull off. Cartoons are much faster. They come in, they get in, you get it, and it's published, I think, instead of spending so much time. But our life is faster too. So that's why I think the pace of the cartoons are where they are. Subject matter is not necessarily something that I follow carefully, but I do have a friend who sends me a daily laugh out loud. She collects cartoons from all over the world and sends them out on her own little blog site. And it's extremely popular and we all love it. Before I go to bed, I open up the file and look at that. And that's how I go to sleep, is one more giggle and I'm done for the day.
Yep. It's funny how I hear from so many cartoonists, more than any other person, how Charles Addams has influenced them. And you could see that, people are really moved by Charlie's work today. But on the other hand, I don't see it actually on the page. You hear people talk about his influence, but I don't necessarily see a school of Charles Addams now.
No. And I think people say that because it doesn't mean that his style influenced them, but his attitude, his focus of where he came, which was off center, maybe really influenced them more than anything else, and not necessarily his artistic abilities. I think that's most of the people who worship Charlie was because he was so different.
Yeah.
His were macabre, a little dark, a little spooky, a little, Vic Mizzy music theme,
I do know the cartoonist who is his biggest fan and the person most influenced by Adams' work is my friend Nick Downs. Nick Downs and I get together every couple of weeks, and Nick is coming out with a book produced by our producer, Marty, here. Marty's going to be producing a book of his cartoons, a collection called, well, Marty, I'll let you give the full title. It's Law and Disorder and...
It's the cover is actually a cartoon that says Polly Wants a Lawyer, and it is a picture. The cartoon is a man sitting in a chair, and he has a bird in a bird cage, and the bird saying to the man, Polly wants a lawyer, because it's stuck in a cage. And that's the cartoon that we have on the cover, and it's cartoons of I think it's murder, menace, and mayhem, the cartoons of Nick Downs. And all the cartoons are very dark and very, the world of crime and gritty and law and disorder. And it's a great collection, and it's very reminiscent of the voice and kind of feel of an Addams world of dark, macabre humor. And it should be. I think it'll hit the same kind of audience. I'm sure Nick is a huge fan of Adams cartoons. Bob, you know Nick pretty well. I'm sure that you know his background of
Yeah. Well,
cartooning.
Nick got his start through Charles Addams. His first entry into the New Yorker, like Sam, was selling an idea to the New Yorker that was then drawn by Charles Addams. Sam only sold one idea of many tries. He sold it. He got paid a very large amount at that time, $200.
Wow.
Nick sold a few ideas, and Nick's most cherished item in his possession today is a letter from Charles Addams thanking him for the gags and for his admiration for Nick's ability and his work. Nick and I get together every couple of weeks, and he shows me his cartoons from the week, and they are amazing. And that they have shadows of Charles Addams. There's hints of it right there, and it's just superior work. And I'm sorry other people don't get a chance to enjoy it, especially you, because you would really appreciate the work he's continuing to do, as if in some way Mr. Addams passed the torch to Nick.
Well, I think there was room for all different types of cartoonists. That's why the New Yorker worked. It wasn't just the same look. There was a time and a place for each one of them to do what they did. And it was great that they were all published together for a while. And then, Charlie was young when he came into the New Yorker, as was Sam Cobain. And so was Frank Modell and plenty of others. So there was a whole generation who were already leaving. The Helen Hopkinsons and people like that were on their way out.
Right. Thurber was long gone.
Right. And
people don't realize how early Thurber was at the New Yorker and left.
Exactly. That's it. It's sort of like watching movies today when you see a movie star in there and then find out that they're 86 years old.
Yes.
And they're still in your 30s, and they're not.
I thought Penny Singleton was Blondie until I saw her in the early 80s, and I was like, what? No.
What? Not her.
Not Penny Singleton. So, yeah, and then there was like Saul Steinberg. There was that whole 50s very lean, linear thing going on. Plus, then there was Charles Addams, who was like a Rembrandt. I always go there. But, they were such stark opposites, and you really don't see that much anymore. Everything looks very quick, more or less.
That's what I was...
I didn't mean to suggest that there are people who have reached his heights of ability. There is only one, Charles Addams. The Charles Addams cartoons, if you look at them, they do have a very classic painterly look that Michael hinted at. Rembrandt. They're that good.
Yes, and the other thing is Charlie became this household word because of Boiling Oil probably brought him more notoriety than anything else ever did, or the skier on the tracks on both sides of the tree. There are certain ones that nailed him into notoriety, even though no one knew what he looked like. He had stardom, but it was within the magazine. Then along came TV in the 60s when his career was starting to slide a bit, meaning he was paying more and more for ideas because he was having fewer and fewer himself, and wasn't being as published quite as much. He was still publishing his books, which he did, 13 books in his lifetime. Every 3 to 5 years, he would do What I Did This Year and mash in things that also were not accepted by the New Yorker. So he filled the pages with other things than just New Yorker.
It is amazing that the Addams Family was only on for 2 years, and as you said, didn't generate a lot of revenue for him. It got knocked off by Batman, but now it's become this massive revenue producing, licensing behemoth that you have to have the reins of.
Right. And it does float the boat. We're a not-for-profit private operating foundation. Right. That's our organization. We don't have to sell works in order to stay alive. We live on royalties. We live on royalties from the 1960s TV series and all the other nonsensical things that have happened since then. And it is amazing. I mean, Charlie would be appalled and impressed at the same
Yes.
time.
I would think bemused.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, he really did find it really boring that someone would take, he was an artist. He's working on the next cartoon. He doesn't really care about Hollywood. He was going out with Hollywood and, former first ladies and stuff like that, and having a good time. He loved showgirls more than anybody else.
Well, who doesn't?
I mean, he really had a lot of them. It's just amazing.
Oh,
and he
Lord.
liked to photograph them without their clothes on. So,
Oh, my.
he had a house in West Hampton Beach. It was in the bulrushes. He did a lot of photographing in there.
He's making Peter Arno sound like a Boy Scout.
He is. Peter Arno was very, I know his daughter, to a point. And, we did have some discussions. Peter Arno was, I think, 20 years older than Charlie. So he was
Right.
almost leaving, and Charlie was getting his strength up. But he was a bon vivant.
Yes.
And he really he carried himself very well. He had this kind of Cary Grant look about himself, and or that kind of suave,
Yes.
debonair man. And Charlie was never debonair. He could dress the part, and he would attend things. I mean, Truman Capote loved him. He went to that famous black and white ball of his. And it was great to have Addams at the top of the list. It was always the first one on my invitation list of who's coming was always Addams. So that always worked, and that spread his name around, actually. So he traveled in that circle of I call them intelligentsia, but they aren't. They're just sophisticated with a lot of money.
Michael's being a little modest. He's hung out and dated people like Jennifer Lawrence and
Stop it.
people of that speed. But that's today. You don't share those things. You keep it to yourself. And Michael's very modest.
Yes, and
I wouldn't be saying this if Charlie were alive, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence is the name of Shaw's cat, FYI.
yes, exactly.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, I thought it was Miss Lawrence, as a matter of fact.
Yes, it's Ms. Lawrence to you, sir.
Sorry, Ms. Lawrence. No non-binary or anything. Just
No, Ms. Lawrence.
Kevin, you've given us a lot of Cartoon Pad exclusives here.
This has been, I will say, this has been a fascinating and really interesting podcast, and I thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
More than welcome. Thank you for having me. This, it's this time with this thing coming up one more time. Every time a new version of Addams Family hits, it creates a certain stir. Now we're getting Vanity Fair and several other magazines, and NPR is doing one this next week.
I smell a Terry Gross.
Yeah, well, it's not her.
Okay.
So, it's just someone else we tried Terry Gross. She never responded when we came out with new books.
Bob?
It seemed like a really good idea, but she's not the only game in town. So.
No.
Yeah, but I could help, Kevin. I'm friends with Terry.
Oh, really? Well,
off the air, I'll help you.
Deliver
make
Terry
another little
Gross
connection.
to.
I sent her books and I sent her some letters, and I just never even got a reply saying, "I'm really sorry, we're terribly busy this month or this."
Probably
year."
never got to her, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's possible, Kevin. What I find out is that some people just don't see it. Then one of our listeners, Michael Maslin, I sent him 4 copies of my cat book, and he just received the book today. I've been sending it for 6 months. And I know Terry will say to me, Terry goes, "Where's your new book?" And I said, "Oh, I sent it to you a few months ago." But
Bob, stop sending them COD. Come on.
but they get like 500 items a week.
I
And
know.
the postmen are getting all the books. They're the readers.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking I have to start sending these, return receipt, certified mail, so I know
Yes.
it got there. But that was years ago, and it was when the musical was happening. The Addams Family musical.
Yeah.
All those things add weight to the issue of Charles Addams. And yet, my job, which I find much more interesting than the Addams Family, is all his other work. His other work is so much more fascinating, and he didn't even care about the Addams Family, and it was just like a minute portion of his work. 180 drawings, 80 of which appeared in the New Yorker. So it was not a lot of work that has created all this sensation.
There was a fantastic, mind-blowing show at Princeton University before the pandemic. And it was a lot of the work that appeared later in a book that I recommend everyone getting. Although I don't know the exact title, but it's the New York cartoons, all the New York eccentric cartoons in a collection.
Oh, you mean of Charlie's?
Yes.
Yeah, this was a book I wanted to do before doing the evolution book, because I found a drawing of his that had, and it was a rough sketch. It had the Statue of Liberty's head, and there was a cleaning lady's mop coming out of the little windows at the top. The back was the island, and I thought, what a great, and I wanted it to be Addams' apple. That was it. That I thought was the cover. Of course, they chose something else to go on the cover eventually, but
was that the title? That's a great title.
Yeah, no, I had that for 10 years saying, come on, let's do this other book so we can get this other one out. I figured the Addams family had to push first to get Charlie into the 21st century of seeing the book on the shelf. And then we could come out with his New York centric work. And the evolution book is in, I think it's, I don't know, 8th printing, and it's in 7 languages now. So it's doing its thing because it's the Addams family, of course.
Soon to be in Romanian, I understand.
I would assume so. Thank you. And you might be helpful to get that translated with some of your friends there.
Now, the exact title, as you mentioned, Kevin, I found it right now. It's called Addams' Apple, The New York Cartoons of Charles Addams.
Right.
Each book, amazing. And so I went to that great show. Is there any shows coming up, collections of his work that you see in the foreseeable future?
Well, there is one right now in Nashville in a big old mansion down there called Cheekwood. It had been owned by a couple who kind of helped to finance and put Nashville on the map 100 years ago. And it's one of those big, like a Newport mansion on a high spot of, I don't know, 1,200 acres overlooking all of the Smoky Mountains in Nashville. So it's in a really unusual location, but it's a really great job that they did on displaying it by painting the walls a certain color and the lighting, all of it. It's in 5 of the rooms upstairs in the house. That's running through the end of January, I think. The one in New Jersey right now is going to close, on Halloween, I think. But again, both of them, we've done preliminaries with finished work. And that's very interesting for, I think, everyone to see. The skier, the famous skier with the woman going down, and in the first rough that he did, which we have on exhibit, has a doorway cut out of the tree that she clearly went through. Now somebody said, Charlie, skip the hole in the tree. Let's do this. The ski.
Oh, that was Harold Ross.
Was it?
I don't know. He's like, what's that?
I don't know. I mean, who said what? And we have little notes in the bottom of things. He did one that was penguins at a convention, all on the shore. Hello, my name is Irv, and all that stuff. And it started out being rocks on a beach with numbers on them. Then he put in seagulls over that with little name things. And then someone else wrote, or Charlie wrote after the Tuesday meeting, penguins with a question mark. So it took 5 different versions for him to get to the cover. And that's fascinating, I think, to watch, to see. I'm so glad that he didn't throw things away. That for the leaky water damage he had in the tower above his apartment on 54th, twice the tower broke, and he would store his artwork under the bed. Not good. And also he had Bad Barber, who tore up his artwork. Tore him in half and would just leave him to him, and then cut off the sleeves of his jacket. I mean,
this could be a biopic.
It is possible. I mean, she was really horrible. I had the pleasure of meeting her, and it was so much fun to have to discuss things on the phone with her, because she would get angry because I could do that with her. I wasn't the widow Addams, but I could let her know we thought she was trash. And her British accent that she worked on while she was married to Charlie disappeared, and the nasty Brooklyn fish girl came out.
Hey there, what's this then? What's your accent, mate?
Oh man, she had that down as Lady Colleton. That tone in the voice. Receiving flowers in Africa from little black children. I mean, what a horrible woman she was. You knew she dreaded every minute of this. It was an awful woman.
Bob, you should have met her, really. She sounded like your type.
Well, now I know my wife got some of those ideas of cutting the sleeves.
I know, I like this.
That idea was stolen.
What she was trying to do is she got him where she wanted. This is good because she got some percentage of the Addams family, like 10%. And yet when he was gone, she claimed she had a document that said she had 75%, which she did not. It was all fake paperwork.
And she was a lawyer.
But a bad lawyer. She was in bad. In other words, 35 years, she did not renew her license in this country. So she was a lawyer of ill repute in this country.
Oh my.
And she did everything. She met Charlie in a bar. It was
it's the only place you could meet him, right?
Well, and he didn't drink well. So he went home, and then she showed up in a mink coat, nothing on, and the hair down the middle like Veronica Lake. And he was dead in the water.
I hate it when that happens.
Oh, yeah, I bet it is. That's what happened with Miss Lawrence, right?
On the ping pong table, yes. All right, Bob, save us. Come on, take us out on a high note, please.
Yeah, I've been thrown off my game ever since about 40 minutes ago. Kevin said
I can't believe I'm such a kindred spirit with Charles Addams on so many levels.
2 dates a day. I'm still digesting that fact.
You have no idea. It is just amazing. And if you realize back in the 50s, you could send a note across town. It could be delivered in the same day. And we have little notes. Charlie, Richard's out of town until Thursday. Holy mackerel, service thy accounts. Amazing.
Good Lord. Okay, we have to stop now. I'm sorry. I have to go shower.
Oh, you have to go. I'm so sorry.
I need some quiet time.
Anyway, Charlie had a good life, a good time. He didn't make a lot of money, but he made enough to be happy.
I feel like he left behind such a body of work too. I'm looking at the page for those who are listening from Nashville. I know we have a lot of listeners there. Cheekwood Estate and Gardens has the show that you referred to until January 8th. I'm looking at the website now. You can go to cheekwood.org. You can see a lot of great examples already. I also want to remind people that on November 23rd is when Wednesday comes out on Netflix.
Yes,
and,
I am there.
Kevin, we're all going to watch and root for you. This is
yes.
I'm going out to Los Angeles for a red carpet. A week before. They're going to do it all. I actually went to Comic-Con and listened to the writers do a panel a few weeks ago, which I will never do again. There's several 100,000 people wearing Lycra costumes running around. And it's really very frightening.
Charles would have loved it.
Oh, yeah, to a point. Superheroes were not his bailiwick, but
okay.
And also superheroes who really didn't look like superheroes.
No, I understand.
Superhero clothes. It didn't work.
Yeah, Kevin, I'm sorry I missed you there. I was at Comic-Con too. Were you dressed up as Doctor Who?
I was not.
Everyone else was.
I landed on the day that I landed from Nashville at 4:00. My car was at the parking lot in LaGuardia. I got into my car. I was in New York at 4:30. Everything was smooth as can be. I had to go to this Comic-Con panel at 7:45. I was late.
Oh.
I was driving the car for 3+ hours in New York, trying to get into a garage where I should have gone up to 96th Street and taken an Uber. But no, I thought, just around the corner there'll be one. I just know it'll be.
I actually knew how frantic your schedule's been this past month, and which is why Michael and I are very grateful that you made time for this, because we were trying to get you a day to come on the podcast, and I knew your travel arrangements was just crazy. And so But it is your busy time. It's October.
It is. It's unfortunate. It's Shocktober. It's Charlie's month. You know,
Yeah.
You know, he's a lot. It has 11 more months in the year, and we could spread this out a little better instead of this constant October stuff. But I understand it. It has to do with the Addams family more than anything else. That floats the boat. I get it.
And it was
So-
him. Yeah.
So, Bob, my big takeaway from this evening is Charles Addams had no Halloweeny. Thank you. And with that, I say good night.
Thank you
Kevin.
very much, gentlemen.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, Kevin. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Take care.
Okay, folks, that concludes part 2 of the Halloween cartoon pad.
Pretty spooky.
Have a great Halloween. Michael and me are going to suggest go out as a gag cartoonist. There's nothing scary in the vocation. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.